May I request Patu now to, yeah, please, whatever you are comfortable with.
So, well, I want to apologize, Naveen, that I actually was just thinking that I'd like to speak a little more about hotels and then how I see it evolving with some overlap, I guess, with what Deep said. So, on the way here, when I just read what I was supposed to talk on, I had a quick look at where I was and my company 12 months ago, 14 months ago, and where we are today. And I just wanted to share this little journey. And that's really foundational to what I'm going to talk about going forward. So if we were doing 100 rupees revenue in February, in March we did 44, in April we did 18, and then from then on, of course, there has been a very gradual rise, and now we are today at, I guess, 60 or 50. The journey actually has put 5 or 6 things in very clear perspective for me as the CEO of a company in a segment which was utterly devastated, which is the hotel business. And I'm going to just talk to you about how we are looking at the new way we want to work in the next 1 to 2 years. Because my firm belief, by the way, is everything will bounce back by the end of next year. So if you look at India, really, first, there'll be a full bounce back, and I'll tell you why. So let's talk purely from the demand perspective, okay? 12 months ago, 40% of my demand was online. 20% was small, medium, micro enterprises, which actually constitute 31% of India's GDP. 25% was large corporates. 5% was meetings, incentives, and 10% were foreigners. Now I'm going to break this segment. The 10% foreigners, in my opinion, will not come back till next year. The 5% meetings today have somewhat come back, but in very small form. I'm looking at this massive hall and saying, when would any hotel ever assumed that this kind of setup would be required for a very limited number of people in such a large hall? What are the segments? So let me go back. Retail. I was doing 40 rooms a day, say, in February last year. I'm doing 45 today. Not only has it picked up, it's increased. The only problem is the traditional customer is a very small part of this, maybe half of it. The rest are new customers, and I'm unable to determine, and I'll have a chat with Deep about this later, are these guys there to stay? Because these are people looking for deals. I believe in India, loyalty is completely fungible. No matter how good your loyalty program, it's all price driven, and it still is. Okay, so when you get a 5-star hotel for 3,000 bucks or 4,000 bucks, which is the mid-market price, and you get a mid-market hotel for 3,000 bucks, the entire way a customer might look at a product will change. So I'm still in the process of trying to work that out, and I think Deep, it'll be an interesting thing to see what happens in the next 6 months, because hotels are waiting like vultures to increase pricing. That I know. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see which segments fall off. Of course, assuming you have the tech and analytics to actually determine that. So my 40 retail has become 45. My SMEs, half of them have come back. My large corporates, close to 0. So my guess is, and I'm just speaking aloud, is that the one segment that will shrink significantly going forward because of work from home and so on will be the large corporates, right? But here's an interesting thing. If you look at the last 15 years, what has killed the industry has been the rate of growth of supply has been faster than the rate of growth of demand. But demand has been growing at 12%. So if I think of it from a very simplistic perspective, which is that the last 1.5 years have been a gap year. They didn't exist. You just had to survive it. Then my broad guess is demand will come back to pre-COVID levels by somewhere in October next year. Number 2, at least 7% of supply in India, especially in the mid-market, will have been permanently obliterated. So let me make a wild statement. pricing in India will be at 2007-8 levels, end of next year. And this will be fantastic for the hotel industry. You got to survive till then. So that's the revenue side. Cost. I have 8,500 employees, or I had. Today I'm running all my hotels actually at about 60% occupancy with 4,200 employees, 50%. If I add everything back, spas, restaurants, banquets, we estimate we'll need 6,000 employees. Current level with 8,300 rooms. So efficiency. I'll break it down. Some of it is, of course, process changes, but a lot of it is linked to a point Deep raised, which I'll come to subsequently. So second is productivity improvements and massive drop in operating costs. My best guess is that if we normally do an operating profit of 35% net, it will go to 45%. It is already at 40, and when prices come back, it will cross 50%. So massive margin expansion for hotels. Not only will revenues go up, those who keep costs under control will also see enormous increases in operating profits. What are the other changes I see? So I've talked broadly about revenue, customers, broadly about costs. I think risk management is now right on the table. So we had a risk management policy and so on and so forth. Let me share with you, I have spent at least 500 hours creating a new risk management framework. Because I think risk management is now a core job of any CEO. There is so much uncertainty, whether it is demand side. So I identified, you will laugh, 1,100 risks that can hit me. Okay, and then I identified which were the risks that matter, and they are only 200. For each of them, we've tried to create a dashboard of response. And it's simple. I would recommend to any of you who run a business, just look at likelihood of that and impact. And that'll take care of everything. So risk management. One of the key risks I think we realize is we need to deleverage ASAP. And I think that any business like ours, for the CEO, now getting to be debt-free as quickly as possible is the first risk you have to mitigate. What are the other two key things I feel are going to be super important in the future for hotels? One is ESG. Environment, social governance. I mean, that's another key area. It's actually one of the upsides of COVID has been I've been sitting and twiddling my thumbs for so long at home that I've read up a heck of a lot on ESG, and I realized that we have miles to go. In fact, the country has miles to go. Last is digital transformation. I thought that we were on a certain path as far as, digitization goes, digitalization goes, going paperless and so on and so forth. We're nowhere there. There are so many low-hanging fruits for the hotel sector in India, like just getting your revenue management system as good as the most basic airline system. Loyalty programs, these are low-hanging fruits. In fact, I've just hired Boston Consulting Group, and they told me it's a very expensive assignment, probably be 60, they'll cost us 60, 70 crores. They said, I'll give you payback in 8 months. The improvements we bring, that revenue, that profit improvement will pay for itself. And it's something I think every hotel chain has to look at, because in so many ways we are so archaic. So when I look at it, this is at least my little laundry list. And I have no doubt it is broadly shared by most other hotel companies in India. I see 2, 3 other things happening. I certainly see that we need to get into the experiential space. Like Deep said, Taj has done this. I know it is subscale. I know it is very small in numbers. But the guy who successfully does it at scale, in my opinion, is going to be the next superstar of the hotel industry. Very large disaggregated supply. No longer do it yourself. You have either your own facilities management team or you partner with somebody and look at it at scale. 500 or 2,000, 5,000 such bungalows or villas or whatever you want to call it, and the logistics and tech to manage it is an enormous opportunity. So this is broadly how I'm looking at it. I totally agree with you as far as tourism goes. I've taken a few friends of mine, it's a little anecdotal. I took a few friends of mine, foreigners, before COVID to Aurangabad to the Ellora cave. Now, I'm just going to ask a question. This is a survey. How many of you have visited it? Could you raise your hands? Come on, you guys are in the tourism sector, right? Very few. So once upon a time, I was in the Parthenon, on the top of the hill in Athens. And I'm a history buff, so I was with somebody and I was explaining to her that, this is like cradle of democracy, some bullshit I was saying. Suddenly this Greek came up to me because I picked up a small stone, a marble stone. And he said, do you know how precious this is? I told him that this is, I think I was a little cocky. I said, this is an 8 million owned piece of stone. What's so precious about it? It's all around. He says, no, this was part of, the Parthenon and, it's the cradle of Western democracy. And so, he was selling it to me. No need. I hadn't actually reached out to him. When I look at just the Ellora cave, especially that temple, that 1,000 years ago, some local king and some genius, some architect, looked at a small hill and went top down and carved a temple, visualized it. There were no drawings, no CAD, with chisels, no drills, and created a temple. To me, it is the greatest wonder of the world. And how many visitors does it get? If I go and pick up, in fact, if I go and deface, one wall has the Ramayana, in fact, right, which I was looking at. People have defaced it. Unless and until, in our country, we fundamentally don't recognize what tourism can do in every possible way. Soft power, image, employment, foreign exchange. We are losing one of the biggest opportunities in our country. See, we are a services economy. We are not manufacturing. I must disagree with the government's perspective that manufacturing will drive the future of India. Tourism in and of itself can improve our GDP by 5% a year for the next 15 years. And I think all of us as stakeholders must try and convince the powers that be on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Patu. I am tempted to relate a very, very interesting incident, much on the lines that you mentioned. I'll try and make it as short as I can. It's a longish incident, but I'll cut it as short as I can. At a book launch, which was on 2,000-year-old temples of Gujarat. The launch is being done at the PM's house. PM is releasing the book. And when he's releasing the book, I happened to be there because the author was a friend of mine from college. And the PM apparently had promised him, जब तुम ये किताब निकालोगे, मैं launch करूँगा. Then he was CM. किताब निकाली, now he's PM. He said, मैं launch करूँगा. And he said कि जब मैं प्रचारक था, तो मेरे बड़े दोस्त हैं अमेरिका में, मेरे को बुलाया कि आप आइए. When my itinerary was being made, they insisted कि आप क्या देखना चाहेंगे. So I went on saying कि जो मर्जी दिखा दीजिएगा, मेरे पास I have no wish list. इसे जब वो बहुत इंसिस्ट कर रहे थे, तो मैंने कहा कि कुछ आपकी बड़ी प्राचीन चीज हो, वो दिखाइए. So they took me to Philadelphia, and they took me to this bell. तो मैंने बड़े अचंभे से देखा कि ये तुम्हारी बेल कितनी पुरानी होगी. तो बड़े गौरव से बोले वो 250 साल. तो मैंने कहा 250 साल, और ये क्या प्राइड से बात कर रहे हैं. मेरे देश में तो 2000, 4000, 5000 साल की भी पुरानी चीजें हैं, और हम उनको प्राइड नहीं लेते हैं. So what you are saying, somebody like him is aware of that, and in the audience, and I'm not being, divulging a state secret, the Secretary Tourism and the Minister of Tourism were sitting there, and he said, Mahesh ji, कुछ इसका note करिए, and they were all busy taking notes कि हाँ PM ये बोल रहे हैं. You didn't need to take a note. I still remember what he said, and he said, can you have a website which can enlist all your Prachin monuments and make Indians and actually global travelers come and be able to navigate their travel from their website. Now, of course, Deep, when you do this, please don't remember my 10%. Thank you.